The Chicago and Illinois Midland Railway is one of those railroads that you know about but do not know much about. Often overlooked by the other railroads in the region, the CNIM was and still is a major player in the railroad scene in central Illinois. With its main shops located in Springfield, Illinois, the railroad operated in a north-to-south direction from Peoria in the north to Taylorville to the south. In this program, we will take a look at the operations of the railroad starting in 1986 through the Genesee and Wyoming Purchase in 1996 and finishing up in 2006. To the employees, these were the glory years of the railroad, as today, even though it is still a major player, it is a shell of its former self. Let's take a look at the railroad as it was in From Green to Orange, the Chicago and Illinois Midland. The railroad was known for its attractive green livery on their locomotives, as seen by SW 1222 working the noon shop switcher in Springfield in 1973, as it makes up a train that will run north to Peoria later that evening. The main source of traffic for the railroad through the 1980s was Southern Illinois coal bound for the rail-to-river transfer in Havana, Illinois. Half the coal was used by utilities in Chicago, and the rest was sold on the market and shipped to other users. Two SD9s and one of the railroad's unique RS 1325s is in charge of one of the coal trains as it climbs to Petersburg Hill in 1973. Now let's take a brief look at the railroad's diesel roster. The first units acquired were SW 1200s delivered in 1955. 5 of the 6 made it into the INM, with the 19 being sold to Commonwealth Edison in 1979. The only 2 RS 1325s EMD ever built were CNIM 30 and 31, delivered in 1960. Built with the GP20 cabin nose and SW 1200 hood, the units were designed by EMD as passenger units. Shortly after the G&W takeover, 4X Southern Pacific SW 1500s rebuilt by Omnitrax were delivered to supplement the fleet. The second model the road acquired was the SD9. These units also made it to the INM, however the 51 has the distinction of being the only locomotive retired by the railroad in 1981 and used for parts until late 1990s. The SD18 model was purchased in 1961 and 62. These 2 units remained on the roster until mid-2019 when they were sold to LTEX after nearly 60 years on the same rails. The most modern power owned by the railroad was the EMD SD38-2. These units were mainly used on coal trains and were also leased to other railroads during downturns in business. These units were sold to the Union Pacific in 1995. The last power acquired before the G&W takeover were 5X Illinois Central SD20s rebuilt from SD24s. The last one was delivered only weeks before the takeover. The railroad was renamed from the Pawnee Railroad in 1906 after that railroad was purchased by Samuel Insull, who also owned the South Shore Line, and Francis Peabody in order to fuel Insull's Commonwealth electric power plants in Chicago. The new owners embarked on an expansion of the railroad, first east to Taylorville, then north to the Illinois River and on to Peoria with the purchase of the Chicago, Peoria, and St. Louis Railroad. The bread and butter of the line was the coal deposits along the railroad, which made up most of the traffic. The railroad kept their line-side structures to simple affairs, usually with small brick depots and small engine facilities like in Taylorville and Powerton. The main shops and paint shop were located in Springfield. Let's now take a look at the operations of the railroad starting in 1986. Crossing over the CNIM diamonds at the throat of the yard, a Norfolk Southern local heads back to the NS yard with a Southern GP38-2 on the point. Extra 31 North has 6 empty hopper cars that were repaired in Springfield and Caboose 74. These Commonwealth Edison repairs were valuable revenue for the road.